Paul, I am super interested to hear more of your story about this business that replaced. I think this is going to both terrify a lot of people and get some people really excited, but replaced their Salesforce instance with their own vibe coded alternative using Lovable.
Yeah, so I can't name the client because a big they're a division of a big Fortune 500 company. Actually, they're
Oh,
one of the biggest companies in the world.
intriguing.
Yeah, so the interesting thing about this company is that they had a multi-million-dollar Salesforce contract, and
Okay.
it was just eating their profit. And when I say multi-million dollar, I think that was for like the larger division. So I'm dealing with like a subdivision of a division.
Right. Right.
Um, and like the whole thing was came up because they're like, we're just not getting the value out of it. Every time we want to add a report, it's like another $3,000 just to upload it. And then
Right.
stuff was breaking, as the system was evolving, and it was just like a bit of a mess.
Yeah.
So they they the the guy that I talked to, he's kind of like I want to say he's a jack of all trades, but he's sort of one of those MBA administrative guy who also has sort of some technical talent. And honestly, like our backgrounds are kind of similar. It's
Hmm.
just, he didn't go the route of opening a software agency, and I did. So I'm a little, like a little more experience on some of the technical stuff now than he is. But he's really smart guy. And he knows enough SQL to be dangerous. And he said, like, we got to replace this. We got to do something different. And so he vibe coded using Lovable a
Hmm.
CRM and a
Yeah.
Salesforce management tool. And I was honestly like really impressed because they have it's a B2B company, and they
Okay.
have a very, very complex sales process. It involves like a material that is consumable. It involves like parts that require a lot of fitment. Like there's just a lot of different pieces to their sale, and so
Hmm.
they're asking their salespeople to do a lot. It's
Yeah.
to know a lot, and so when they show up, so when the salesperson shows up on site, they need to have a definite idea of like where the inventories are, where all the stuff that's on the way, what they're ordering from other suppliers. Like it's like
Right.
this kind of very
Complex.
complicated dance. Unfortunately, they're an industry, or fortunately, they're in an industry where just about everybody uses pretty much the same um, kind of ERP or procurement tool. Let's just call it their
Okay.
procurement tool. So they have that going for them, right? So they can go in, and these guys are all, I say guys, but I think they're Salesforce, half of it's female.
Hmm.
But these folks are very, very conversant with the actual workings of that tool, and so they can help them go in, and they're viewed as a resource for helping them kind of manage their supplies, making sure they don't run out of stuff when they need it, etc. Because
Hmm.
their customers, they have they need to have like 20,000 things in stock at any given time in ones or twos. So it's a pretty complex thing. And so the having the right data when they visit their customer is like critical. And so his boss was using a tool to pull data out of the the corporate servers, the corporate ERP that they needed to sort of run this. And so they were running updates once a day or twice a day. And he started feeding that in. He started using that as a data source for Lovable, and then he was able to work with Lovable to include not only that data source but a couple of other data sources that they have,
Hmm.
and to just kind of record stuff, as it went. And so when the salesperson goes in, rather than what they had before, which was a spreadsheet that was built using this business intelligence tool that was emailed to them that half the time didn't open up because it was too big or they had the wrong version of Excel or whatever. The salespeople did. So they kind of turned the corner on it, and now they have this very, very helpful tool for them, and they can literally just easily kind of click around and see what's going on, what data they need, what products they need, what's going out of stock, what's being deprecated, all that sort of stuff is at their fingertips.
So that it sounds almost unbelievable, and I've got a ton of questions. I'm getting echo.
Oh,
Are you hearing that?
I'm not.
Okay, that's
Sorry
fine.
about that.
So they replaced Salesforce their Salesforce.com instance.
Yeah.
And man, I have so many questions.
Okay.
So how long did this process take? Are they really to a point where they have ripped out, I don't know if it's enterprise wide or for this department, but where they've literally said, canceled their Salesforce.com licenses.
So they decided to cancel the
Now you're on mute.
Salesforce license quite a while ago, and they canceled that Salesforce license quite a while ago. And so that was not like an issue, but it got to the end of the license, and they were like, we can't have nothing. And to be honest, like they were saying that their salespeople weren't using Salesforce. They weren't recording, visits. They weren't,
Right.
The activity wasn't being recorded properly. The reports didn't work. So
this is what I love. This is what I love about vibe coding. I mean, every project that I've gone into at a much smaller scale, because you can create an app or a solution for one person now, because it's so, for within a scope, right?
yeah,
It's so quick. You say, hey, let me customize this for you.
yeah.
But you've told me, again, it's always in my ear about dangerous code.
So there is some danger here we can talk about.
Okay. Well, because I'm curious how he got to a point of confidence. So the usage I get, Salesforce, I have to learn. It's not perfect for me. It's got all these, million things that I don't need. There's a lot of noise and distraction in there. So if you build me something that's customized to me, great, I'm adopting it. But scale and how,
so
enterprise grade software.
So this particular group, has maybe a dozen, maybe 2 dozen salespeople. Like it's not huge. Right?
Okay. Oh,
so
interesting. Okay.
They're very active, but it doesn't have that many different. And it may be less than that, maybe less than a dozen salespeople. But it's a pretty small group. So, from scaling standpoint, that's not a big problem, but that is one of the dangers and one of the reasons that he came to talk to me, in my Razoyo hat about it, because they realize that they have this issue where, some parts of it are taking too long to run, they're taking too long to load. So there's definitely some things in there that need to be optimized. They've probably got some wasteful code in there, which is typical, because the AIs, they like to write very, very thorough code, but it doesn't mean the code is super efficient, right?
Right.
So that's one of the dangers in there. The other danger he talked to me about is they've been using this, he started working, he built it over about a month, and they've been using this for maybe a month or two on top of that. And he has a big concern that they're kind of doing this on the down low right now.
So typical.
Yeah. But it's super useful. So the division manager, the business unit head does not want to get rid of it because it's actually driving sales. It's working, right?
It's the microcosm of like an Uber. Like, who cares about taxi medallions and legality? We're just going to flood the local town with these Ubers. Everybody's going to adopt it. Nobody's going to want it. Yeah.
Well, but once they start, once corporate is like, hey, your sales are trending up, things are looking good. Like, what's going on? What are you doing?
Yeah.
Yeah. As long as we when I say we, Razoyo can work with him to
Right.
secure
Right.
the app. He
Yeah.
thinks like, hey, if it's secure, if it's running on a server, if you guys are involved because we do other
Who
stuff
cares
for
how it was
them,
made?
right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're a trusted entity. Then yeah, it'll be fine, right? Like they'll still be able to they'll be able to use it, and they'll be able to justify it. But he realizes that he's like on this, like he's building the bridge as he's going over it, and he needs me to help him add some trusses to that bridge
I
before
love it.
before he
So
drives off the edge.
tell me more about that process because
Yeah,
I think I was this is what I was expecting is
yeah,
you've got these mavericks out there who are vibe coding and loving it, and they are aware of the risks,
yeah.
and they need I don't want to say a traditional developer, but people like you and Rosario that have the rigor and the documentation and the testing and the security
Mm-hmm.
measures. So tell me more about how you're helping, how you're bringing those two together. You're
Yeah,
scaffolding in a structure after he's like you said before the whole thing.
yeah. So there are kind of two ways we're doing it. One is in situations like this where the client comes to us and they already have something vibe coded. And by the way, over the past 3 weeks, I've now had three companies come to me with something they've vibe coded, and
Yeah,
they're like, "I need this to scale." Right? Like
interesting.
that's their issue. So scaling is their number one issue. They realize that this thing is going to fall apart if I get too many users on it, and I don't want to be responsible for that much financial information online. I need to take credit cards, I need to have recurring payments, I need to have billing info built into this thing. And right now I'm just like
Yeah,
running the cards on my Stripe account or whatever it is, and it's not necessarily and I've got 10 users, I can turn off the app, or I
right,
can if somebody doesn't pay. But when I have 1,000 users, well, that's not going to work,
right,
right? So
right.
you have all these little problems with scalability that they come to us and we address it, and we can take over their application generally as is. The vibe
Really?
coding apps tend
Yeah.
to build out in Node.js. Lovable loves Node.js. Um, you can use other languages, but we can easily kind of build on top of Node. Node has scaling limits,
Okay.
and you can do some fancy engineering to get around a lot of those limits, but most companies don't. And
Mm.
so one of the things that Claude Code and Cursor and so forth are really good at is you're like, okay, I need to change this to a more scalable stack and rewrite the entire application and in that scalable stack, and I can turn it loose, and the next morning I come in and it's done.
So, you,
For the
so
most part.
you're essentially transforming the vibe code into enterprise grade code using higher fidelity tools, Claude Code.
Yeah,
What was it you mentioned?
yeah. So Claude
Cursor.
Code, Cursor. We look.
Yeah,
We're a dev shop. I think you'll find that 95% of devs are going to be using Claude Code.
yeah.
They maybe it's if you're in like a Microsoft setting, you may be using something else. If you're some
Something inferior.
yeah, well, I don't know, or you're using Google Anti Gravity or something
Okay.
along those lines, right?
Okay.
Like, but I would say anybody that's working with open source tools is definitely going with Claude Code. And honestly, like most of the innovators in this space, like the guy that created OpenClaw and the guy that created BMAT and all that, like what do they use? They use Claude Code, which
Got
now that guy works at OpenAI. The OpenClaw guy. I don't know where that's
Oh, is
gonna
that
go.
right? He went to OpenAI. I thought he went
Yeah,
to
they hired
he
him.
went to
Yeah,
Anthropic.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
OpenAI
Okay. All right.
hired the OpenClaw guy.
So I love the story. Should we switch to Claude Cowork since we've talked about Claude Code? Because I think you have another story about you unleashing Claude Cowork
Yeah,
in a
so
sense.
this is kind of like an in the news type of type of piece, right? So Claude opened up the ability to control your desktop about a week ago. With
Okay.
if you
They,
download the Claude app
okay.
to your desktop,
Yeah.
and you give it permission, it will now
Oh,
pilot not just your browser, which it was doing previously through a Google Chrome extension. It can run anything on your computer. And
okay.
people may not know, but we record this podcast using the OBS, which is the Open Broadcast Suite. And I had gone through and through a series of updates and some things I was messing around with. I had totally messed up my templates, and things weren't looking good. And I was kind of desperate because it was 3 hours ago, and I wasn't going to be ready to record this podcast with you. And so I said, "Hey, Claude, here's your chance, man. Fix
Fix
my
it.
fix my OBS." And not only that, not only do I want it fixed, I want new
Right.
templates. I
Right.
want things to look better. I want a gajillion different things to be updated, and it was and I give it a long list. First I give it a test just to see if it could do it, and it did it. It did fine. And then I gave it a long list of all these upgrades I wanted, and it basically said, "Dang, that's a long list. Um, are you sure?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm sure." He's like, "Okay, it's gonna take me a while." And so it was able. So OBS it's an app. It's not running in the browser. It's running in an application on my desktop.
Yeah.
And it went through and, man, like, figured out how to use it. It looked up all the documentation, and it rebuilt all my templates. It organized it really nicely, gave things good names. So
I,
it's crazy.
I, I think it's phenomenal. So let's give a checklist. Could you off the top of your head give a checklist for getting started? So Claude Cowork, you have to have Claude
Yeah.
Cowork, the desktop version, the downloaded, application.
Yeah, so the
But what?
Claude app has three modes. So
Right.
one is chat, which is just like using Anthropic, right,
Yep.
as a LLM. The second is Cowork, and
Right.
that's where it's doing business stuff.
Okay.
So I'll have it do things like look up information about contacts I have that I want to start reaching out to. I want to find out their company, where they live, all that kind of stuff. And
Hmm.
then looking stuff up, or even making changes to my like, I'll have it pilot through the browser, like through Chrome. We use Bravo as our CRM. I'll have it pilot that, and it will create templates and animations and stuff, and it'll say, "Hey, give me an API key." Okay, here's your API key. Okay, now I can talk to Bravo, and we can work that way. And then there's Claude Code, which most developers run in the terminal, and that's the one that kind of scares people off. But this is
Okay.
now like an interface, which, to be honest, like, aesthetically, visually, and functionally, it's less pleasing than the terminal for somebody that's used to working in the terminal.
Oh, interesting.
But for somebody who's like afraid of the terminal, because there's a lot of people that don't like the terminal,
Hmm.
um, it works, and you can write code with it. You can write usable code with it, and Anthropic, Claude, Sonnet, and all that. Opus, very good at like creating software, right? They're good at that.
So within code, getting started to let, so because Claude Code I've used, Claude Chat, of course, I've used. Because of your dangerous code thing, or because of your warnings around OpenClaw and the security, like
Yeah.
putting Claude Cowork to maximum use
Yes.
has me a little. I'm conservative about it. So,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm super eager.
Yeah.
So, what are the steps for somebody to start to deploy Cowork in a low way, or a manageable way, to
Yeah.
start to take advantage
So
of the
so Claude
capability?
so Cowork is part of that Claude app. So install the Claude app. So first of all, like you don't have, I don't want to say this like absolutely, but it appears that you don't have all the security issues that are around OpenClaw.
OpenClaw, right?
Which, by the way, if you're using OpenClaw, there's that NeoClaw. Anyway, just look it up. The Jensen Huang introduced it at NVIDIA's conference. They've kind of created the secure wrapper around OpenClaw, which people are kind of using now. I still would not use OpenClaw even with the NVIDIA secure wrapper around it on my desktop. I don't use OpenClaw on my desktop. It's running on a separate machine. That's the only thing running on that machine. That and like a little local LLM Quinn model. Quinn. But then but yeah, just install the app. I'm okay with it. Like I would say go ahead and do it. And you
do
can
you have
write
to
code with it.
Do you have to enable any settings or like, so for instance, if I wanted it to go, and I don't know if you can take it this far, but if I wanted to send it off to go through my browser and book a flight, using okay, so do I have to set up anything different, or I just tell it that? And
there are some settings in there where you're going to give it permission to use your browser or your desktop or whatever you feel comfortable with. The nice thing about it is like they're little toggles. So if I'm not using Claude Cowork to do something on my desktop, I just disable that.
Turn it off
until I need it. Yeah.
Gotcha.
But I do have it run some things for me, like it summarizes my email and LinkedIn and all that sort of stuff. I've been like way more on top of it because it used to take me 10 tabs to go over my comms in the morning in an hour, right? And now it just summarizes, tells me, I don't have to read through any of the spam or whatever. It gives me what I need to follow up on. I can even tell it, hey, reply to so-and-so, send a LinkedIn, accept this LinkedIn invite, don't accept this. I just do it all within the interface and it takes care of it. But
that's incredible.
Yeah, you have to be willing to
get access to those accounts. As an agency guy, I have, I think, 5 or 6 dedicated profiles within Claude, right? Because or not within Chrome. Because I've got my business, I've got 3 clients gave me email addresses, and so I'm can Claude Cowork work across all of these?
Yeah, so it will, like, if you install the Chrome and activate the Chrome extension, you could use it. Like, if you want to summarize all your email from all the different, it would say "hold my beer." Yeah, just literally
love it. And would an easy exercise to be, because I always hear about file organization or what have you, downloads. So could you just say, hey, go to my downloads folder? I had this problem the other day. I wanted to, or this morning, I've got 20 files that a client gave me that I downloaded in one thing. And I just said, I just want these to have numbers 01, 02, 03 at the beginning so that I can easily index them.
Yep.
Okay. All right. I've got
it'll rename files. It'll organize your file folders. One of the first things I had it do was this was within the OBS app. But I was like, hey, I've got these different scene collections and the scene names, and they're not consistent, etc. Like I said, come up with a consistent naming scheme. Let me approve it, and then go implement that. And it did that, and it reorganized the whole application for me.
Awesome.
Yeah. So,
Paul, thank you for spending the time with us again. It's always so enlightening. You send me into the weekends with all kinds of interesting side projects that I want to try.
Yeah, it should. Next time we'll have to talk about Paperclip a little bit more. That's starting to emerge. But
give us the teaser. What's the teaser for Paperclip?
The tease on Paperclip is that while it is not a 0-person enterprise, it's becoming quickly very, very capable. And I'll give one other thing to folks who, if you're using OpenClaw or any of these agentic things that uses skills, because now
right,
OpenAI, Claude, Anthropic, and I want to say Google have coalesced around sort of a standard
Oh,
for creating skills in terms of file type and file
what
organization, etc. So
was
so
that
now
mean?
skills are portable. If you go on GitHub, there are all these skills libraries now. You got to be careful, because
Sure.
some of them have malicious
Trusted
code in
sources
there.
only. Yeah.
But there's a really good one that I'm not gonna like describe it, but just go to it. It's called GStack, GStack,
Okay.
and take a look at all the skills that thing has, and you'll be shocked. Like, I want to
Okay.
say it's thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands,
Hmm.
maybe not that many. But and then the other thing is, like, learn to create your own skills. Like, once you're done doing something, you can tell Claude Cowork, hey, I want to do this a lot. I want to do it this way, a little bit differently. Create a skill that I can use in the future so that we always follow the correct workflows and parameters, and it'll create a skill and remember it for later, and put it in your little skills library.
All right, we got to get the next one scheduled. We got to do a deep dive on paperclip and then a really deep dive on skills. I mean, that
Yeah,
sounds amazing.
yeah,
Yeah.
skills are the big thing now.